I'm here today, family, because as you saw in my last video with the superfood cacao cookie dough balls, I'm in the process of co-creating some really amazing new raw standards for the industry and trying to define what does raw actually mean in the food industry. What does it mean to be certified raw? You have a product, you have a restaurant, you have something you're coming out with, and the definition of raw to this point has been something that I think has been kind of all over the place. Wouldn't you agree? So today I was having an amazing brainstorming session with my friend Lisa, and we've also been in contact with some other phenomenal people here in the raw and organic industry, and we've come up with a basic framework of how do we define what the standard of raw is. What does it mean to be raw? So dig this, family. I'm gonna throw out some really fantastic ideas your way, and I would love for you to take it in and then also leave us some comments after you watch this video on what you think the standard of raw should be. So without any further ado, here we go. So we're talking about the raw standard in relation to temperature. What is the temperature guideline we should have in regards to a certified raw product? What's kind of that magical number where something goes from being raw to being a cooked product? So that's the first consideration. The second is enzymatic activity. The amount of actual usable enzymes in a specific product, how do we measure the enzymatic activity, and how much enzymatic activity needs to be present in a food for it to be considered raw. That's the second point. So the third point on our raw standards is the discussion of fermentation. So when we ferment a product like cacao beans, does that still make it raw? Does that push it into the living foods category? And also, what is the distinction we want to make between a raw food and a living food like a kefir or probiotics or fermented vegetables? So that's another point we want to discuss. Dehydration. Actually using industrial dehydrators versus sun-drying foods, and how does that play into being raw? Nutritional value. What are the minimum standards of nutrition for a product to be certified raw as well? This is what I mean. When you flip over a box and you look at the nutrition fact panel, right? What standards need to be nutritively there for it to be a raw product as well? Then we're talking about purity, y'all. Purity in terms of, is it a whole food? Has it been cut with any additives or synthetic ingredients or fillers in the product? How pure are the ingredients that are being used in that raw product? Of course, natural ingredients, how close to nature, how close to being off the tree is it? That's another point of consideration. And the packaging. You know, a lot of people kind of miss this point. Does it have compostable, non-leaching, BPA-free, healthy packaging that the product is actually into? And what does that have to do factoring into the raw standard? We're also going into the harvesting of the food, right? So that point of origin of how is the food actually harvested, and is it picked at the optimal time of freshness in the peak of the season in which it's meant to be grown? What does that play, again, going into that role of the nutritional value and the freshness of the food? So we're talking about the harvesting and the growing cycles of the food as well. What about soil testing and the contents of the soil in which the food or the fruit trees or the plants are grown in as well? And how realistic can the soil testing or soil analysis component be to the raw standards also? Then we're going also into the irradiation and transportation issue. So we've got all these amazing superfoods coming from places like Peru, China, Ecuador, Dominican Republic, Canada, all over the world, all these tremendously beneficial superfoods. And in that process, are the products being irradiated? Are they safely being transported? And what are the temperatures during that transportation process? There is a reason why we've been working on this issue and this challenge and opportunity for a few years now of trying to define what does it mean to be certified raw? What is your opinion? Leave me a comment below on what you think the minimum standard should be on a raw certification process, and how realistic can we actually insert some of the standards and some of the measures I was discussing here today. So hit me up with some comments below, let me know your thoughts so we can co-create a standard of raw food for the entire industry, much like organic certification, fair trade certification, non-GMO verified. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in here on J-Wro's video blog, talking about a raw standard for the entire organic food industry. I will see you guys soon. Peaches.